It's turn!
Time to address the fucking cringe. Okay. Hello, guys. Well, hello. Hello. Archfiends. This is your boy Vince Valentine VX Turk, and my God, I'm cringing. You know why I'm cringing? The most stupidest thing, especially if you're in the Final Fantasy community or if you're a fan of Final Fantasy. How do you claim you're a fan and say that some of the spin-off games... Now, I agree, some spin-off games aren't canon. Okay, the Crystal Chronicles will never be canon because those are separate games. But games like... It should be obvious! Okay, it should be obvious that Tactics goes into 12. It's a spin-off game of 12. It's before 12. Tactics goes into Final Fantasy 12. I'm sorry, but I'm getting a little flustered with the fan base, with some of the dissida retards. I love dissida. Dissidia's a good game. Just because some games don't fit the mold of dissida does not mean it doesn't fit. Dirge of Cerberus was right after Advent Children, was right after Final Fantasy VII. This should just be common knowledge. This should be just common sense at this point. Final Fantasy X too. Well, obviously, it's right after Final Fantasy X. Why would it be called X-2? That don't make sense if it isn't canon. They call it X-2. It's the sequel to Final Fantasy X. Oh, I'm gonna calm down. I'm not gonna let these, canon tards, whatever canon, Dissidia canon tards, get on my nerves. I'm gonna calm down. I wish I could light another incense, but I gotta take that upstairs because after this video I had to go to bed because it's real late and I had to get to work tomorrow. So, okay. Final Fantasy 13-2. Final Lightning's Return. Final Fantasy 13 are sequels to Final Fantasy 13. Why is it called Final Fantasy 13-2 if it's not canon to Final Fantasy 13? Why is Lightning's Return considered the third installment of the series, where everybody wins and Lightning gets her sister back and everybody lives happy ever and lives in a better world? Why is it that Dirge of Cerberus had Cloud help Vincent Valentine, the main hero of that spin-off game, which he was one of the side characters in the original, but now he saves the world and defeats the last remnant of Shinra. Vincent Valentine defeats the remnant of the Shinra company, which is Deep Ground. You won't tell me that shit's not canon. It is. It is canon. Just because they don't go into the studio, and don't go to the studio, and don't go to the studio. That's, it does. I don't care what you say. Spin-offs are canon. The only spin-offs that aren't canon is the Crystal Chronicles or the Legends games. The Legends games, the Crystal Chronicles, and the Echo of Time, whatever that other Nintendo Wii one. Because it's its own spin-offs. It's its own series. It's its own legit series. It's Final Fantasy still. It has the crystals. It has getting the crystals and everything else a legit Final Fantasy game have, and the combat, but it's still, those type of spin-offs are the ones that aren't canon. What is canon is Tactics, because Final Fantasy Tactics goes into Final Fantasy 12. Even though it doesn't look like it says so, it is. You would do enough research, enough research would go well. And why would they name a Final Fantasy game 2? The number of the game in 2. Like Final Fantasy X-2. And they reference it in Final Fantasy X-2. Final Fantasy X-2, 3 years ago, the battle with Sin. That's canon. The battle with Sin was canon. The battle with Sin is canon. And Muna have mentioned the battle with Sin 3 years ago. 3 years in the Final Fantasy X-2. It's called Final Fantasy X-2. What do you need to be canon? What is canon to you guys? Just because it don't go into Dissidia does not mean it's not canon, okay? Dissidia is different, okay? They put all the Final Fantasy characters from multiple worlds. Dissidia is pretty much Final Fantasy Mortal Kombat. They just take them out of a different time period, put them in a gladiator ring to fight to save the world. It's a fighting game. So even if the fighting game didn't have a story to it, you know, it was just like basic fighting, like kind of like arcade is. At the end of the day, it's still a fighting game. You don't have to make sense in a fighting game, okay? Mortal Kombat's new ones didn't make that much sense, you know. Some Tekken games don't make sense, but it's a fighting game. It's a fighter. I go by all versions of canon. Dissidia can be canon too, but I go by the sequels. Final Fantasy X-2 is canon. Final Fantasy 13-2 is canon. Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Return is canon. Final Fantasy 7 Crisis Core, obviously it would be canon, but you know people don't talk about that. But so we're not going to put Crisis Core. Final Fantasy Advent Children, the movie, is canon. Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy 7 Dirge of Cerberus was canon because Vincent Valentine had to join up with parts of Reeves' version of Shinra, with Avalanche, with Barrett and Tifa and them, to take down the last remnants of another echelon of the Shinra company, Deep Ground, you know. And Vincent Valentine defeats the leader of Deep Ground, which again is his half brother, but you had to play the online. But nonetheless, it's still canon. Same thing with Before Crisis. Before Crisis is in between Crisis Core and Final Fantasy VII. So it did happen. So I don't want to hear this canon bullshit. On and on with the fucking bullshit! But no, I gotta end this right now. I really gotta end this argument. That's why I'm so pissed off. Because I'm gonna end this before all this shit starts. Before the shitstorm starts. King's Glaive and Brotherhood, they even said is canon to Final Fantasy 15. So where do people get off to say what's canon and not? The only games that aren't canon, but are still Square Enix titles and are approved by Tetsuya Nomura and the CEO of Square Enix and Tabata, if he's working on the games, are the Crystal Chronicles series, the Echoes of Time, the Legend games for the Game Boy Advance, which the Legends games were pretty much gimmicky games, but they're still good games to collect. But Final Fantasy X-2, Final Fantasy 13-2, Lightning's Return Final Fantasy 13. I don't care if it's not in order. Shut the fuck up. I don't care. Final Fantasy VII Advent Children movie. Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus. Final Fantasy VII, the mobile game Before Crisis, is still canon to its own perspective series, even if you go by Dissidia. You know, Dissidia is just like Mortal Kombat. They're just bought two different each other's worlds to fight to save the world. That's pretty much what Dissidia's concept is. It's Final Fantasy's Mortal Kombat. That's what Dissidia is. Maybe not with the blood and everything, but it's pretty much is. They take all the Final Fantasy characters from their respective worlds and make them fight. Okay? I just had to end this. I'm sorry. I know this was an angry rant. I'm getting triggered. I have anxiety attacks right now, and this is just so cringy. I just can't believe it. This is like the worst cringe I've ever seen. Because you think you could decide what canon is. If you're like the original games, go ahead and like the original games. I had no problem with that, but when you count out the spin-offs that Square Enix spends lots of money on to please us guys, and you count them out of the series, yeah, I have a problem with that as a true fan. That's like saying Kingdom Hearts Recoded does not come after Kingdom Hearts 1. No, it does come after Kingdom Hearts 1 because you fight Marluxia in Recoded. I think, yeah, in Recoded. No, it's no Rechain of Memories, my bad. Sorry, I got it mixed up. Rechain of Memories. And then after you defeat Marluxia, Sora goes to sleep. Kingdom Hearts 2 happens. You play as Roxas, then pick up with Sora and finish the game. Kingdom Hearts 2 is finished. See, you see how that is? Okay, let's go to Final Fantasy VII. Sephiroth has been defeated. The world's safe from media. 3 years later, Sephiroth made parasitic forms and came back through a parasite named Kadash. Cloud defeated Parasite Sephiroth. 3 more years later, because of what Meteor's actions did, because of what Meteor that happened in the original Final Fantasy VII, Deep Ground has came out of hiding and trying to take over the whole world because they're no longer underground. Vincent Valentine defeats him with the help of Cloud and them. Now let's go to Final Fantasy X. 3 years ago, Sin was defeated. Now there's a new enemy that looks just like Titus. They have to stop him and the weapon. Okay, Final Fantasy 13-2. A new Lassie comes from the future. 2 Lassies. Null as the good guy, and then the bad guy, Caius, wants to save Yule any means necessary, even end worlds. But it's still canon. Lightning dies, but she comes back in Lightning's Return and saves everybody and puts people, and it saves people from the god that's going to end up destroying them. Lightning Return ends, Sarah comes back, everybody's happy. And, Final Fantasy 15, why should I have to go into how Kingsglaive and Brotherhood goes into Final Fantasy 15? It does. They even said it. Square Enix said it themselves. Sometimes Square Enix don't say stuff because they think that you should be smart enough to figure out it is part of the canon material, or they wouldn't put the numbers like that. Pay attention to the numbers. If it says let's just say Final Fantasy 15-2, if there was a 15-2, 15-2, it'd still be canon because why would they do that? Square Enix does things for a purpose, and when I hear the stupidity of these people, because they would say, well, that wasn't in the city, it wasn't in the city. I'm done with this rant. I'm gonna put some incense up on stairs. Hopefully I can go to sleep, but I'm just done with this rant. I'm done, the reason why I'm addressing this, because I want to address this before the fantards get rampant, because fantards, they latch on to everything. It's like the people who defend, let's just say Star Wars, or they defend that Snoke is Plagueis. Even when he's proven not to be Plagueis, people still want to go on and on about it. Just like how people want to go on about how the spin-off games aren't canon. Like I said, the only ones I listed were the Crystal Chronicles, Echoes of Times, and Legends. May the crystal be with you, and stop listening to these canontards. They're going to poison your mind.